My name is Alison Pelegrin. I am Louisiana Poet Laureate. Thanks, I didn't expect that because I'm in my outrage mode right now. But I'm going to begin this with a lot of thanks that need to go out. First of all, to you all for being here this evening. Thank you to Megan Holt. I can't see because stage, but wherever Megan is, there she is. She has an incredible vision and this legacy that she's creating with words and music and One Book, One New Orleans. It's been an absolute pleasure to work with her to bring together this incredible lineup of poets, all about to lift their voices. We've got Lisa Saloy. I mean, you're going to be bowing down and screaming all night. Stacey Balkun, Louis Romaguera, Harris-DeBerry, Jessica Kinnison, Karisma Price, Gian Smith, Sha'Condria, Sibley. I mean, you're really, I don't know what other poets in the world are doing tonight because we have it all right here. So thank y'all for your voices and your vision. I'm thankful to the Captive State Advisory Board for undertaking the telling of this most difficult story of the history of mass incarceration in Louisiana, and for doing it in a way that absolutely commands and demands our attention and action. Thank you to Eric Seifert, who is here, but again, I can't see, and Jessica Dorman from the Historic New Orleans Collection for collaborating over a period of months as we work to make this event a reality. Eric's family had just grown by one baby, and I was bugging him about this poetry stuff over the summer. I'm grateful to the Academy of American Poets for a Poet Laureate Fellowship that's funding my Lifelines Poetry Project, and that's made possible by the Mellon Foundation, and I'm grateful for that gift, and I take the responsibility of that gift very seriously. So thank you to them. Thank you also to the Foundation for Louisiana, who funded this idea when it was just an idea. And I can't tell you what it means to have the faith of people in what you're trying to do and what your vision is. That's an amazing gift, so thank you for that. I have to thank Marianne Fisher, G. Orlando, who's not here today. I know she wishes she could be here.
Dr. G.
Because she's the one, yeah, Dr. G, whoever said that, that's right. She walked the walk with me en route to the poetry group at Angola that first time. And she tells everyone that she invited me to go, but she didn't invite me. She called me up and told me I was going someplace on Tuesday at such and such a time. And so I said, yes, ma'am. And it changed my life. Sometimes poetry begins in silence, in that place outside of language. The first time I moved through the Captive State exhibit at the Historic New Orleans Collection, I had no words at all. I wanted to run and hide. I couldn't even think of what to write on a Post-it note in the reflective space that followed. And I don't think there's any kids in here, I can't see, but I hope there aren't, because my response was, what the fuck just happened to me? I mean, what does one say in response to the systemic racism and the targeting of minorities, black and brown men especially, that have led to Louisiana's position as the incarceration capital of the world? How do we wake up and move through our days? It's the same question you might ask of warfare or of grief. How does the world go on while others are forgotten in the stifling dark? What are we building? Where is our humanity? I have no idea how Louisiana can even begin to answer this question, but I will say that my growing knowledge of so many different people and groups working for those impacted by the so-called justice system gives me some sort of feeling. An easy word for that would be hope, but I don't think that's quite it. And now I'm going to turn it over to the poets, because we are capable of dreaming and getting loud and telling it how it is. And I think that listening is a good place to start.
All right.
My poem is about an image of a man in Angola hospice ward. His name was George Ghost Alexander. And these are the photographs by Lori Wasselchuk that sort of act as a coda to the exhibit. It's called Ghost Before Dying. I did not come to harvest stories, but neither will I turn my back on this image of a dying man. Ghost on his pillowcase, ghost on his socks. George Ghost Alexander, exiled from the world at Angola prison hospice, reduced to medical needs and mercy which radiates from the hands of men we've been trained to fear. He twists in the bed as though ignoring pain, as though to shout over his shoulder a message of a few words, maybe a joke in the manner of Isa, a bath when you're born, a bath when you die. How stupid. This is no mugshot or disembodied prayer hands making the feel-good case for his redemption. Ghost gives his face. He is clear-eyed, knows more than we ever will from peering in on this image of his dying on display. Bed-bound, prison-bound. Soon the Angolite will write up his obituary and he can't refuse any of it. Ghost sees through the walls to the future and what's coming. Mourners on foot behind his handmade casket in a carriage pulled by horses with braided tails. No sun, no birds pinned to the sky, just one tree, its arthritic branches stripped to the bone. This is his dignity. 33 years, an invisible man, and here he lies before us, George Ghost Alexander, shackled in his dying to the wall, rising from his exile in the traditional Angola way. Thank you.
As you know, this is tough. This is really tough. Can you hear me?
A little bit closer, maybe?
Is that better?
Yeah.
I'm gonna get louder. Louisiana, my beloved Louisiana, boot of the Gulf, culinary heavenly seasons of mudbugs to Callioux to Okra for all who live and visit. Our geography bound by beautiful bayous where alligators roam and possums hide, peep and reappear their beady eyes. House sparrows squeal, goldfinches holler, cardinals carry babes, Louisiana's beautiful birds. Brown pelicans parade across blue skies. Musical mysteries of blues, gospel, jazz embrace faces to smile, hearts to sing. Louisiana, where cicadas serenade us by day, katydids scream, us silly at night. Misbeliefs blossom in fall, and blackberries break juice among fences. Festivals of chicken, gumbo, strawberries dance up and down each parish for feasts and play. Black Creole sing, for everyone time is marked, no escape, like enslavement. Many people stolen from their mother fatherland, just disappeared, took, never to return. Many died en route to slave castles, holding pens, cages laced with blood of beaten limbs, menstrual blood of young women haunting the walls. The stench still smells these centuries later. Like weight of descendants dismissed, devalued, deemed unworthy. So many drown in Middle Passage storms. Such storms still haunt and rage in Atlantic seas. These strong surviving men and women stolen for their skills. Congo gave carpentry. They knew what woods did not rot. You're of a blessed iron, the metal lace that adorns gates, galleries. Maasai men herded cattle. Egyptians huddled horses. The Mali horsemen cultivated black cowboys. Denied, dismissed, their ways erased from his story. Unless the lion speaks, the hunter tells the tale. Even iron rusts, like the centuries of blame poured on black backs. It's no wonder our brothers, some fathers, some cousins, friends, find no escape from the forced cages that prison calls since enslavement. The forced fury of continuing control post-shadow life. 300 years from colonial to now, convict leases. Clouds pout, prisoners, their pain pours like rain. These hearts bleed for justice. My people, oh my people, forced to labor, framed into cage cells, their spirits crunched into brick boxes, their wills stripped of life choices. Black prisoners bathe in prison injustice. Penitentiaries blossomed. Angola rose to continue the call. Incarcerate blacks. Continue forced labor. Before 1972, parole was possible. By 1979, Louisiana State abolished parole, increased numbers of offenses mandating life sentences. Life without parole. Ordinary men behind brick walls, forced for futile fury of enforcement, aging in prison, sentenced to die there. Clouds pout, prisoners, their pain pours like rain. These hearts bleed for justice. United States blasts world rank 20th in violent crime rates. Global leader in imprisonment. Louisiana leads in incarceration rates. Clouds pout, prisoners, their pain pours like rain. These hearts bleed for justice. Be my freedom, Lord, I'll be your hand. Be my freedom, Lord, I'll be your hand. Be my freedom, Lord, I'll be your hand. Every day's a Sunday dollar in your hand. In your hand, Lordy, in your hand. Every day's a Sunday dollar in your hand. Well, Lordy, oh Lord, yeah. Well, Lordy, oh Lord, yeah. Stick to the promise, God, that you made me. Stick to the promise, God, that you made me. Wasn't gonna worship till I go free. I go free, Lordy, gonna go free. Wasn't gonna worship till I go free. Well, Lordy, oh Lord, yeah. Oh Lordy, oh Lord, yeah. When we walk, we bend and rock behind. When we walk, we bend and rock behind. Ain't that enough to worry? Convict's mine. Ain't that enough to worry? Convict's mine. Well, Lordy, oh Lord, yeah. Well, Lordy, oh Lord, yeah.
I have a very short poem and I have a short note about my poem. It's how I had to do this to make sense of the exhibit. It felt important to think about environment, landscape, ecology, and absence as poetic form. A poem is made of two things, text and white space, and sometimes music. Text is not as truthful as we think. Language is shaped by history, which is shaped by power. Maps are also shaped by power, and every revision is an erasure of what came before. I was struck by the maps in the exhibit, by the small moments of story and language, and how that information fit into what I already knew. Here in my poem, the whiteness is all-encompassing. It's in power, not unlike the system responsible for mass incarceration. It also, I hope, implies a silence, a lack of story. The text we have tells one story, but that doesn't make it true. The empty space, I hope, implies the existence of other stories, stories that were silenced, truths suppressed, and even erased. And I think poetry is a powerful vessel for these retellings because of that tension between the text and what's not there. A page is so open, but it's still bound on four sides. Like a map, it can only depict a portion of the truth, flattened into two dimensions. It is restricted like a cell. I mean, it's all very troubling to say the least. It feels as useless as it does impactful to theorize about depicting mass incarceration in a poem while people are locked away from the world, from love, from their lives. Someone's garden is now overrun with weeds. Someone's beloved dog was surrendered to a shelter. Someone's kid has no one to help them with their math homework because people are in prisons. Incarceration is a form of absence, not only of empathy, but of care and of a person from their life. The absence takes everything else away too. And so in this poem, there's just a lot of space. It's called Invisibility. Incarceration is the legacy of enslavement, invisibility. The laborers who built these levees are saints, unnamed. Correct. Did you know the term corrective comes from the plantation? The word is a lash, as is most white lace. The more space we build, said Larry Smith, the more space we fill. He was talking about his penitentiary, not about the levees or the forests or the water. This legacy is like water. The human body is 60% water. Louisiana, too, is water. All this erosion, all this sinking, even a single tree is a weapon. And when the storm hits, not everyone has a chance to get out. This legacy, insidious as the rain trees, as Spanish moss. The more trees we cut down, the more dangerous the flood. The levees built by those imprisoned to keep out water for us and lock up so much within. History doesn't always float, and maps don't show their own footprints, and we all stand here without shovels, and we don't even know their names.
So that was Stacey Balkun, so one more clap, I think. My name is Christopher, Louis Romaguera. Chris is fine. I think my one note would just be that I wrote, when I was at the exhibit, I couldn't think of the pens that they used to give the incarcerated when I used to teach classes at OPP. And they were pens that would like melt in your hand, like little spaghettis. And I guess they did it out of safety, so to speak, but it was really hard to get anything written down, much less to write without 5 minutes without hurting your wrist because of how hard you're gripping it. So that's the one note I want to make for the poem. Besides that, obviously, I just want to dedicate the poem to all the people I met when doing that volunteer work, both the undocumented and the over-documented. But also I want to dedicate it to my friends who were incarcerated before I was old enough to understand how I can help them. What can a flimsy pen do when you read there are everyday people behind these walls, and when actually every day there's more people behind these walls? What can a flimsy pen do that softens in your hand like a solitary soggy spaghetti trying to feed the entire incarcerated masses? What can a flimsy pen do when it melts in your hand and your wrist starts to burn, the same hand you punched walls with because it was the only legal, readily accessible thing you could punch? Back when the only way you knew how to deal with your pain was with more pain. The only way you knew how to deal with your self-destruction was with more destruction. What can a flimsy pen do when the past and future king of oh so many says, while the cops are restraining you, while the mob is yelling and surrounding you, Louisiana, I'm disappointed in you. In the good old days, you'd have them in a stretcher by now. What can a flimsy pen do if it's just writing like filming a man being killed in front of you instead of actually trying to help? What could it do if you actually try to help and actually end up dead right next to that? What is the good of writing with a flimsy pen if you're only writing or saying a name after the person can respond? What good can a flimsy pen do when the darkness and despair and the walls are closing in on you, lights out? What good does a flimsy pen do when tourists leave your bar and comment how clean the streets are after the party the night before? Them not knowing the incarcerated masses were cleaning up, eating beads like Mr. and Mrs. Pac-Men, being chased by ghosts and hooded creatures, never being allowed to escape the box. What good is a flimsy pen when cruelty is the point and it is oh so usual? What good can a flimsy pen do when it bends and breaks against a breath of air, and yet it's somehow supposed to survive the hurricane gust winds of the incarcerated masses? What good does a flimsy pen do when the incarcerated only see loved ones through a telecom visit, and we all know we're not supposed to believe what we see on screens? What good can a flimsy pen do when you have the flimsy pen in the first place because the prison guards somehow think that bricks, bars, break bodyguards to fear the unarmed? What good can a flimsy pen do if I've lost all my ability to help people after my one little bit of trauma? I could still feel the heartbeat still on the street. Did I leave the street? Losing one meaning I'm useless to all, useful to none. Don't blame the trauma, Chris. The inflation of pain has here nothing in this world. Maybe my flimsy pen isn't good because I've always been lazy, because the privilege prevailed over nothing after all. What good is a flimsy pen if all I inherited from Cuba was the fear of being tonto útil, of being used the worst of the worst? Louisiana, I'm disappointed in you. The crowd really did go wild. I don't know how a flimsy pen can fight off a nation that hasn't dealt with its original sin statement, much less its continuing sins of mass. So I'm saying I don't know how a flimsy pen can fight off a nation that has over 5,000 nuclear bombs, which I don't know is over 4,900 more nuclear bombs needed to end the world. I don't know how my flimsy pen will fight off a nation that elected a man that when he sees someone being restrained in front of him, talks down to him because it makes him and his tiny little hands feel bigger. I don't know how my flimsy pen will do good for a nation where 75 million people voted this man in, and the next day the biggest winner was private prison stocks. And the 75 million people can't be bothered to be bothered because forget the incarcerated masses, maybe someday they might get a buck off on some cage-free eggs. So what can a flimsy pen do? Not a whole lot if it's more silent than the incarcerated masses that are muzzled by distance, chains, and bars from our government. But a good a flimsy pen can do is give the incarcerated person someone, a way to write and find some love, whether on or off the page. A good the flimsy pen can do is I can write a poem to share with you, and you can share this space with me, because maybe one day, whoever wrote it, whoever feels it, can start a movement with one flimsy pen, one passage, one poem, one person, for me, for you, for the ghosts, both the dead and the living, the ones they want us to forget, even though we can never, ever, ever afford to. Thank you.
Greetings to all of you. I'm short a little bit.
Down to earth, just down to earth.
Just down to earth, I really am. Thank you to Words and Music. Thank you to the New Orleans Historic Collection. Thank you to all of the poets. Thank you to the families that keep loving their people when they're locked up. I greet you in the scripture of Micah, I'm sorry, thinking of another scripture. Do justice, love mercy, walk humbly. The title of my poem is called Captive State, From Forever to Forever. And the first two lines of this poem come from one of the staff at Angola. When it's too hot for the horses, prisoners don't work. When it's too hot for the horses, prisoners don't work. A fair is given water. A thirsty man is given time. The color of orange to wear like the sun, far from Earth's spectacular breathing, a black distance so familiar under the widest telescope, eternally bent in plantation posture. I don't know their names, I don't know their numbers, but I can count the sins of this state, criminals in this country, silver spoon and elected, parading under hoodies more dangerous than hip-hop. Who are these killers? With bladed tongues, red carpet liars, punishing for bargains, splurging on sweat, building an inheritance, stacking black bodies in their bank accounts. Penitentiaries sail towards us like slave ships, lynchers coming ashore, wearing badges and suits and black robes sometimes. Louisiana, upside down, is the shape of a gun. Who are these killers? On ballots and school boards and hospitals, addicted to blood and weeping mothers. There are demons among us. 9 to 5 killers under God, in plain sight, in constitutions, in capitals, in Congress, in legislative laboratories, experimenting with our souls. Welcome to the rodeo. Mounted on slavery, 2 cents an hour, carved into a price tag rocking chair, gospel blues, good old boy laughter, a nigga show. The South's favorite gumbo is black people pressed, simmered, silenced. I can taste the smell of Dixie and biscuits, the stink in the wind of America's flags. I don't know how to describe evil and be a lovely poet, so I'll just say algorithm. I'll just say economics. I'll just say Angola, not the African one. This is a postcard from the land of looking away, where piles of humans are harvest for hell. In another lifetime, we were human. In another lifetime, we were human, with no horses to tip the scale, no muzzles on our living. We, the unbridled ones, search for language out of this dark, hold the sum of living thorns with guilty hands. Who can be more precious than a horse? Who could be worth saving? Who can subtract life and make holy mad? Thank you.
Megan, for having us. Thanks to my fellow poets. Honored to be among you. Thanks to Words and Music. Like Chris, I dedicate this poem to the people I know who have lived in incarceration, many of whom died there or died shortly after. Let your body mortify however you please. 1. Bury Jerome with his clean cotton picking bag pinned like a ball gown, backwards cap, eyebrows perfectly arched. Rouge on his high, delicate cheekbones. Be sure to drape his long train so it swoops in silky, wrinkled folds around his legs from behind. Bury Donnie with his framed picture of his mother in her Sunday best, taken on the day she was laid to rest in her white casket with the golden handles. On the other plane, there will be no jacket heavy as a turtle suit. No jacket of charges telling the world you ain't shit. Here on Earth, they won't even hire you at the chicken plant. Up on that bridge, in the sky, in heaven, in another dimension, there your hands will be as smooth as a baby's hands. Let your body mortify however you please now, because this ain't it. Colonial torture image courtesy of me, the one trying to save everybody. The one who doesn't know her butt from a hole in the ground. The tower in the center doesn't catch truth cutting the fence. She's cutting for long distances on foot on the way to heaven, while life itself is an apparition chasing us. 2. The black key in the quilt has burned a black hole in the earth. Only way to freedom seems to be through the grave. Overflow tents, cards in the rain, hot as tents, the burning need for something else. Lloyd Bone drives a funeral horse. Buttons made from animal bone, marbles made from animal bone. The dead man is finished off by the sun, the birds, and the flies. Only then did they stop. Easy rider, staggerly, human domination, humiliation. Who wouldn't be more at home in other worlds? Why not dislocate from this sorry planet? Take up the freedom not to be. Why not get yourself humming with death until it's redundant? Space, time, black altar, world making. Rusted wall, toilet close to the hall. 3. Reverend John Perkins says the 60s in Mississippi were wild and it hasn't changed much. His aunt's boyfriend would come to lunch every Sunday. I'll be seeing you next Sunday if I be living, he would say. One Sunday his chair sat empty, snatched up off the road between Jackson and Brookhaven for walking. Reverend Perkins told me he wanted to do more than just exist. He started talking to himself out loud in the fields until everybody was scared of him. Last Sunday, 2 people shot into the second line at Almonaster. Thousands of people kept going up onto that bridge. Up there was no traffic, and the sky was clear blue as a November sky in New Orleans can be. Someone inside the group shot all around again, killing 2 people. 6 tubas set down in a row. 4. When I had short hair teaching in the jail, a student asked, "You got a girl, Butch Mama? What's your deal? What you into?" All I could do was look away because I had no idea what I was into. And I was allowed not to know. No one stripped me down and sprayed me with a hose. I was the star too precious to name. I was allowed to be the crystal that shatters when pressed. Meanwhile, I convinced the students to write and read out loud. Childhood memories, love poems, anger poems, instruction manuals for something they know how to do well. Tara wrote about the jacket they put you in when you say the word suicide. Turtle suit, a how-to guide. They strip you down and make you cough and cough again, just to embarrass you, she writes. Then they put you in a green padded gown that reminds you of a turtle shell. No undergarments allowed. Then there you are until you stop saying the word suicide, and they let you back into general population in red scrubs, with a sport to eat with. That's as good as it gets. Eventually, after it all, you stop saying suicide for real because you realize it's redundant. 5. His voice is suddenly as high as a leaving train. His footsteps sound like a smoking bus disappearing into song. I made you a living when I was free, now you won't even write to me. In the kitchen of the group home where I worked, Larry, tall and muscled, as wholesome as a firefighter. He's a man. Anyway, he's a man anyone could fall in love with in the rain. He irons his blue jeans and wears tank tops that show off his lotioned brown shoulders. He has a slight Delta accent, just certain words, and knows a lot about vegetables. When they grow and what kills them out in the fields of Mississippi. The Callioux of the riverboat plays Yankee Doodle Dandy. As we stand making coffee, the kitchen is where my memories are, because you have to stand close together between the big table and counter to get anything. Just as I'm thinking this afternoon is resplendent, that I might be in love with Larry too soon, that much more of this beauty goes on. Trees rustling outside the window, the calliope fading out, faint burnt smell of coffee from the roaster by the canal. Just then Larry says, I haven't known anyone as kind or good as you since the warden up there at Angola. Just like him, when I ask you for something, I know it'll be coming soon.
Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Karisma Price. And like all of these lovely people here in the home, thank you so much to all my fellow readers and to Alison for having us do this and to the curators at the Historical Moment Selection. So all you need to know before I begin is that this is dedicated to Richard Leggett. I hope I said his name right. So in Angola, people used to be buried in cardboard boxes before the coffin program. So if your family or you didn't have any families come to claim your body, you were in a cardboard box. And the warden realized how inhumane that was, so he created the coffin program, this coffin building program. And Richard Leggett was the principal coffin maker at Angola, and he would, for over 35 years, carve handmade coffins so inmates could be buried in a proper coffin and sent to the cemetery in the back. I say that because a part of the poem is dedicated to him and it talks about the coffin maker. And two quick things. The thing that really, really did, I wrote this poem because what didn't leave my mind was that this is what his job was, to get him out of his cell and to keep him going. And he famously made Billy Graham's casket, the preacher. And when, shortly after that, he got a diagnosis of terminal cancer and he immediately built his own coffin. And that stuck with me, because how could it not? You can't see the poem, but if you ever open up a Bible, how the big numbers, the chapter, each one has little verses with explanations. So I say that because the title of the poem is called Instructions/Final Exhortations After the Death of the Coffin Maker. If you're not familiar with final exhortation, whether in real life or in the Bible, it's the last thing the person says before, like their last words. So, instructions / final exhortations after the death of the coffin maker. And 2 epigraphs. The first epigraph is, all praise be to Allah in every situation. It was the last words of Marcellus Williams, who was in September killed by lethal injection by the state of Missouri. Even though there was evidence that he was probably innocent, and the Innocent Project took on his case. And the second epigraph is, rejoice in the Lord always. I would say it again, rejoice. It's from Philippians chapter 4, verse 4. So, chapter 1. Stay in line, but keep the line moving. Bring the rulers, the measuring tapes. Your calluses should be hardened before you arrive. Your smile was a weapon you never used before. It's your choice to use it now. Keep the cord plugged. Keep the area clean from sawdust that falls like pollen in the spring. Remember, the tree produces both sickness and death. Do you know your neighbor's measurements? Which tie goes best with which suit? Which eyelid might need more room to be shut tightly? When you are done, hand your neighbor the screwdriver, the sander, and be sure to polish everything. Chapter 2. Who knows the intimacy of the splinter better than the coffin maker? The throat-sick song of the saw splitting wood into 2. Coffins and pollen both come from trees. Louisiana, the skilled producer of both. I will not get over the death of the coffin maker named Munro. He was dead set on carving out forgiveness in a box more durable than cardboard. 3. In the wood shop, the men are free from their blocks, bars, boxes of steel and asbestos. The coffin maker died of cancer in Englewood prison, masses eating his insides. He lives in the ground with every man he made a home for on the plantation Louisiana farms. I saw him yesterday. He lives in the black and white of photography, his apprentices rubbing his feet. Are we the disciples of anything that won't jail the next maker? 4. The same thing that cancers you will envy. Money, which cancers the state. Money, which lords over every brimming vessel. What would we do if our God was a boat? What water would be saving us? 5. Revenge and community hold a knife to the same enemy's neck. Humility, you have turned a blind eye to so much. Don't look at us now. Go, look over there at the God of money, the savior of the self, cancering alleys, feeding poison to the shrinking bodies. He fattens rods. He slicks his hair back into a pompous pompadour, oil staining the river. When we are blessed with the richness of God's money, we show no mercy. Disregard slaughter like a knife discards hunger. Our humanity, a pecan had. In Louisiana, pecans and pollen falls from the same tree, making coffins out of future makers. The males are easier to maintain. When abundant, the city cleans up the sickness. Keep the number of males superior to the female trees. No free fruit in the state that forces our labor. Even botany shows the mistreatment of our women. 6. State the name of your current state. Apathetic, injured, archaic, exhausted. I've held more than the world on my tongue. Death places us on its tongue like communion crackers. I ask, when was the last time you prayed for a prisoner? Like a prisoner who knows the shadows of steel better than stars. Thank you.
Hello. My name is Gian Smith. There we go. First of all, thank you to Lauren and the ACC for hosting us. Thank you to Megan, who always makes amazing platforms for writers. I see you, Megan. Thank you to my distinguished poets who have set the bar for me. I love when I have really impressive people around me, and it makes me want to do something special. And then thank you to all of you who have come here to be part of the solution, especially those of you out there doing the work. I see you, Andrea. I see you. I'm gonna do 2 pieces tonight. This first one is, and thank you to Captive State for inspiring me to revisit a piece that I had written a long time ago. Didn't loved, but kind of liked, and wanted to revisit, and I think I love it now. So I'm going to read that piece, which is my original work, and then I'm going to read a piece by another poet. I don't normally write political stuff, but it's hard for me to write when they've taken away all my heroes. Who can I cheer for when the self-proclaimed good guys are only concerned about how many commas and zeros they can put behind their blood bank account? I prefer to keep my words positive, but there's only so much you can say about gummy bears and rainbows when you're surrounded by anniversaries of mass death. I want to write love poems, ballads of devotion to ideals and goals, haikus high on highlights of sky rising. But every time I think twice about smiling, some crabber tosses me back in the spirit of American barrel and calls it capitalizing. And I want to solve the world's problems because I know have the answers, but the world don't listen. Probably because all of my proclamations end with the replacement of politicians from power and the genocide of democracy with me as the newly appointed Big Brother. And I have no qualifications, except that I know what it is to be privileged while fielding the perspective of a man who holds himself accountable for his own misgivings, unlike politicians. With half my knowledge, 1/8 my style, 3/5 my manhood, but 10 times my wrongdoing, 100 times my status, and 1,000,000 times my capital. So vote me for monarchy. Big Shed the mayor as my lieutenant governor, Lionel. Give me a fire-ass cabinet with Karisma and Khan, Lisa Saloy, Kelly Harris-DeBerry. Because if it was up to our leaders, the only thing left of Palestine would be poetry. If poets are the voice of the voiceless, then our poetic voices will ring high. We will speak for all the people who've been affected by corruption from government heads. We will speak for the voices affected by the war profiteers. And we will speak for the voiceless. Children are dead. We will speak for our own problems here at home. I don't normally write stuff about our judicial system, but it's hard for me to write when they've taken away all my skinfold. Who can I appeal to when our sheriff is only concerned about how many people Orleans Parish Prison can hold? I would prefer to speak positive, but there's only so many things to say about our leaders when they perpetuate the Ponzi scheme of mass incarceration. I want to love my home, speak proudly of our food and culture, reminisce on our 2009 Super Bowl, frolicking at music festivals, singing and clapping, but every time I think twice about laughing, another juvenile gets tried as an adult, and our society moves backwards. And I want to solve New Orleans' problems, because I know I have the answers, but Louisiana don't listen. Especially because all of my solutions end with the advancement of colored citizens. But if that day ever came, there'd be nowhere to pay for all these prisons. And we know that won't happen. Because Jeff Landry's got an answer to all his friends who can't miss out on a chance to stack $1 billion on top of the other billions their great-grandkids can't even spend. So I will sing my poetic song. I will speak for the malnourished souls who've been affected by violence from government heads. I will speak for the voiceless affected by the prison. I will speak for the children whose parents are gone. And I will write for the ambivalent that don't know the plot twist coming in with us realizing our leaders are the villains. They've taken away my heroes, so I'll be the hero for the voices instead. This work, this is a poem by a man named Mir Suleiman, who inspired me to write spoken word poetry. I heard him on Def Poetry Jam, probably pre-Katrina, it was a long time ago. This is the poem that I heard him write, so this is a long time ago that he wrote it, yet still oddly applicable. Mir Suleiman, he not only inspired me to write poetry, but he inspired my poetry as well, and he inspired me to speak for those who are voiceless. And I appreciate him for that, so I'm celebrating him right now too. I am not angry, I am angry. I am not dangerous, I am danger. I am abominable stress, idiotic relentless. I am a breath of vengeance. I'm a death sentence, forsaken repentance to the beast and his henchmen. Armed forces and policemen that survive off of oil in prisons until the cup runneth over with lost souls. They were oversized caps like blindfolds, shiny necklaces like lassos, dragging them into black holes. They have the Hollywood Fidel Castro brothers out of Guantanamo. And the innocents on death row is probably the same proportion as the criminals in black robes that smack gavels, that crack domes, that smack gavels, that smash homes. Justice is somewhere between reading sad poems and 40 ounces of gasoline crashing through windows. It is between plans and action. It is between writing letters to congressmen and clapping the cabinet. It is between raising legal defense funds and pointing a gun on the bailiff and taking a judge captive. It is between prayer and fasting, between burning and blasting. Freedom is between the mind and the soul, between the lock and the low, young and the patience of the old. Freedom is between the finger and the trigger. It is between the page and the pen, between the grenade and the pen, between righteous anger and putting one in a chamber. So what they're going to do with a man with a heart like Turner, a mind like Douglas, a mouth like Malcolm, and a voice like Chris? That's why I am not dangerous, I am danger. I am not angry, I am anger. I am abominable stress, idiotic, relentless. I am a death sentence for the beast and his henchmen. Politicians and big businessmen. I'm a teenage Palestinian opening fire in an Israeli checkpoint, point blank, checkmate. Now what? I am a rape victim with a gun cocked to his cock, bang, bang, cock. Now what? I am Sitting Bull with Colonel Custard's scalp in his hands. I am Sin Cake with a slave trader's blood on my hands. I am Jonathan Jackson holding a gun to my man. I am David with a slingshot and a rock. And if David lived today, he'd have a Molotov cocktail and a Glock. So I say down with Goliath. I say down, but we must learn, know, write, read. We must kick, bite, yell, scream. We must pray, fast, live, dream, fight, kill, and die free.
Yeah.
And they chose me to close this thing out. Wow. How crazy are y'all? Thank you to everybody. I'm not going to do a lot of thank yous because I'm probably the most long-winded of all the poets, and so I want to make sure I get my poems in. If you've never spent a night in jail, when I was young and stupid, I did spend a night in jail, and it felt like life. So I could just imagine. My father was one decision away from ending up in Angola himself. My best friend named Solomon who did. It was when my mom was still pregnant with me. My dad was 16 years old. Solomon has a son my same age who never got to see his dad outside of bars. Thankfully, because my dad had his dad in his life, my father was able to be in mine. Solomon passed away a couple of years ago, literally months before his release. Most of my teaching experience with teaching poetry has been inside of juvenile detention and maximum security men's prisons. And so that's just context for my poems. So the poems I'm reading tonight are in dedication to the Lions, which is my group of male poets that I taught over at Travis Hill School, and then also to the Men Reaction, which was a poetry slam team that I formed and coached of men in a maximum security prison at USP Poly to beat a group of college slam poets who I also coached, which just shows the potential and the brilliance that lies behind bars. I'm going to start with something really simple that I wrote for the Lions.
Oh, pirates, yes, they robbed I, sold I to the merchant ships. Minutes after they took I from the bottomless pit, but my hand was made strong by the Almighty. We forward in this generation triumphantly
These songs of freedom is all I ever had. Redemption songs. These songs of freedom. So this is for Brian, Diego, Evans, Jamiron, and Jaheem. Even when it seems you are prisoners, I see potential. Potent power packed inside black boy brilliance, the kind that makes others fear us. Yeah, you fearless. Forced into a world where you've had to fight just to exist. And here you are, even after all of this, living, breathing, even away from home. Yeah, this is for Bradley, David, Deontay, Terrell, and Tyrone. Even when it seems you are prisoners, I see you as a poem. Hotline after hotline, yeah, you that smoke, yeah, you that fire, that flame that came to bring light to a world of darkness. Veins pumping holy blood, even when the world says you're heartless. You got loyalty and royalty inside your DNA, despite what others say. This is for Cameron, Devin, Jamar, Wyman, Rashid, and Deontay. This is for Rashad, Isaac, Ivan, Ladarius, and Jonte. Even when it seems you are imprisoned, I see you as a prism, a beautiful black pigment and possibility. Even though the system tries to separate and divide you, I see you as Umoja, I see you as you. I see you with no chains, where they can't contain the greatness that you be. Yeah, I see you the way God created you. I see you free. So, I had a conversation with a friend. I had a gang of poems, because obviously teaching in a prison system, you have a bunch of poems you've written for these young people and whatever, but I narrowed it down. So the next poem is based on a conversation that many black people have about with their kids, how to behave and how to be respectable so that you don't get in trouble, so you don't get locked up, and so you don't get killed. And we all know that that shit is bogus because it still happens. And so this is not black excellence, but it's called black survival, because we know the majority of the people that make up the prisons, because we know how prison systems started. If you don't know, controllers, patty rollers, put it all together and you'll get the picture. So black ain't gonna always be excellent. Nah, sometimes it's gonna be offensive, audacious, ass-shaking and cuss words using all the alphabets. Gonna be a gamble. I mean, you never know what you're gonna get with black. Ain't gonna always fit into respectability or highfalutin spaces. Ain't gonna be in proximity to whiteness or pretentious Negroes either, for that matter. Sometimes gonna gather on corners, on porches, or in the street. And sometimes, some gonna say it bring down the property value just for existing and being seen. You know, sometimes it's gonna hit you right smack in the face. Gonna be raunchy and raw, wild and untamed, unapologetic and unaware that it's doing anything wrong in the first place. You know, some folk like they black only a certain kind of way. Want it slick back and slick talking, fair and refined. Don't want it big booty or big mouth, buck jumping or begging for a buck. Want it tongue and tail tucked and not making too much noise. Don't want it riot. Don't want it raising roofs or setting them on fire. Want they black extinguished and quiet as ash. But you know, sometimes black gonna be flame, gonna be too hot to contain, will melt your plastic and the rest of all your fake shit. Gonna have real gold chains and no real job and gold teeth, so it couldn't get one if it tried. You know, sometimes black gonna be denied access and opportunities. Ain't gonna be good enough for white man-made metric. Gonna be measured up against mediocrity and infinite greed. That's why they gave black diabetes, heart disease, and obesity. You know, starve black and keep it hungry for equality. So black gotta work extra hard just to eat. You know, sometimes black gotta steal, rob, kill, and cheat. But that's only because black only doing what it see. You know, sometimes black gonna have a rap sheet longer than the food stamp line, longer than the list of criminally insane colonizers who made just being black a crime. The Constitution and the Bible were both written in proper English, and black was once killed for even learning how to read, but black still know what they both say, even if black ain't read every page, because black be knowing, even when it appears ignorant or illiterate. Black be well-versed in lies. No, black ain't gonna always be excellent. Sometimes it's just gonna be trying to survive.
Come on.
So this is, and the walls come tumbling down for a chain reaction. Thank you again, Alison, for having me. All my distinguished poets, my favorite writers in the entire world are on the stage, so I'm so honored to be here. And the walls come tumbling down. One of the men speaks of several lifetimes in one sentence. His mouth, a clock with no hands, a sunless cavern full of numbers he has memorized. Stand still for only a second to chuckle about how he always dreamed of performing his poetry, just not in this fucking place. Another man confesses that only a few grams landed him here, his entire worth measured on a scale. Another young man wears two big uniform breeches that swallow him like stolen time. His name been locked inside metal file cabinets and between manila folders since he was only a quarter past. You know, he looks just like one of my little cousins, all baby-faced, wrinkled with grown man worries. You know, something meant to grow yet expected to do so in a cage. Almost every man ticked off about how he hadn't seen his kids and grandkids in what feels like too much time or forever. Only getting to watch them grow older through fading photos taped to cement walls, wondering if they are blooming or wilting without a second hand around. Another man, to no one's alarm, buzzes about how he never had a green thumb anyway, that even his own father was more shank than shovel. You know, they all had a way with words. All say that once you've got a detonator for a brain counting down nothing but numbers, sometimes words are the only sand you ever get to see inside this iron hourglass. One man quietly chimes in that he has a unique an antique shop full of cuckoo clocks left for thoughts and would most certainly die surrounded by nothing but madness and wasted time. And I know very well that all I could do is teach them how to stretch metaphors like life sentences and pray that they can grind metal between their teeth until the entire prison turns to dust. In closing, I just want to I didn't grow up Catholic, but I found out what a litany was because I attended Xavier University of Louisiana, and I would go to Mass before I found a church to go to. And so at this time, I want to do what's called a litany. I wrote a litany for the lungs in times of despair, and I would like the audience and everyone here to participate, if you will. And this is just a time for us to ground ourselves in breath. Since we've inhaled so much heaviness on tonight, shall we take in what we received, take what we need, and leave the rest when we breathe out? So when I say, and so together we breathe, this is a call and response. Your response is simply a deep breath. Okay? All right. During times like, a litany for the lungs in time of despair, I didn't say that right. During times like these, when it seems that we continue to suffer loss, we know that we only have more of ourselves to gain. For the wind is in the wind and the blessing in our breath to face another day again, and so together we breathe. Because no man-made system is more powerful than our respiratory system. Oh, how brilliant and resilient we are made. Even when those grasping for power try to leave us gasping for air, we are aware that we are still here, and so together we breathe. The fact that we exist in this time and space means that our bloodline survived in the first place, despite the chains, despite being maimed, despite being murdered, despite being hanged, despite being kidnapped, raped, and stolen. It is evident by how potent they try to build the weapons against us that we are indeed the chosen, and so together we breathe. For those who no longer can, for those who someday will, we boldly take our breaths. for every cell in our bodies that need oxygen to stay alive, for the moments of pause we require to sit with what is going on inside. Together, we breathe. And when we do, we receive inspiration through our inhalation. We fill our lungs with love and light and life and all the goodness in the world around us. Yes, there is still goodness in the world around us and within us, so we trust that we gonna be good. And so together, we breathe. We exhale and release things that no longer serve us, like hate and fear, the false evidence appearing real, for we know them to be illusions only created to cause confusion, but we are perfectly clear and courageous and called to create a new way of living instead of just existing. And so together we breathe. We use our breath to fuel the fire that will burn Babylon down to the ground, and so together we breathe. Together we breathe. We use the same breath to fuel the fire that will spark a movement, a renewing of our minds and our mission. And even when we close our eyes, we can still see the vision to build the world we deserve instead of the one we were given. And so together we breathe. Together we breathe. Together we are free.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, I don't know what else to say. I'm gonna get out of the way, because it's not about me. Thank you all so much for attempting to put words to captive state, the making of mass incarceration in Louisiana. Thank you again to all these poets. Thank you to Megan, to the Historic New Orleans Collection. Also, they've extended the duration of the exhibit. Is it now February 5th?
16.
February 16th is the new closing date, so if you haven't had a chance to get down there, I strongly encourage it. It's quite a sight to behold. So, I mean, I don't know, we're not supposed to really feel good after this, so I think we're in a good place. But I'm grateful to you all for being here, and thank you all again.